Howdy, howdy, everybody. I thought I would start off this video with a controversial statement. Asura's Wrath is a pretty good game. Now, in case you've not heard of Asura's Wrath, this is an action game that came out in the PS3/Xbox 360 era, and it garnered incredibly middling reviews. The reason for that is that this game doesn't really play like a traditional video game. In fact, most people are hard-pressed to call it a video game at all, with a lot of people likening it to something more similar to an interactive anime. And honestly, that's pretty on the money. Asura's Wrath presents itself in a very unique fashion. Each chapter of the game is more of like a TV episode, and the entire game is very episodic in nature. Each chapter has opening and closing credits, a little title sequence, opening plot crawls that you can look through, and there's even mid-mission bumpers that would typically denote a commercial break in anime back in the day. His ass is out. Remember how Metal Gear Solid 5 got a ton of flack for putting opening credits at the beginning of the missions, so you'd always see directed by Hideo Kojima as you're flying in with Pequod? Think that, but 10 times more, and really leaning into it. The game also draws heavily on Buddhist and Hindu mythologies, something we honestly see very little of in video games, especially at the time that this game released. The real unique point for this game, however, is its extreme emphasis on quick-time events, or QTEs. These were a video game mechanic that was heavily popular in pretty much any action game around the early 2010s, and it's a trend that eventually got clowned on so hard in the collective gaming world that they are nearly universally considered a negative trait at this point in time. Personally, I'm a sucker for a well-placed QTE. Something like Metal Gear Rising or God of War boss fights do them incredibly well, where you get briefly taken out of the typical gameplay sections for your character to do something incredibly cinematic, and in those games the QTEs are really satisfying and typically complement the gameplay, which is something that not every game that implements QTEs can boast. However, Asura's Wrath is like 75 to 80% these cinematic QTE action sequences, and this throws a lot of people off, and honestly, I can't blame them. This kind of heavy QTE gameplay is not going to be something that everybody enjoys. It doesn't help that the QTEs in Asura's Wrath also don't have any tension. If you fail a QTE, the worst that'll happen is you'll either have to do it again, or you'll just get a slightly different scene in the cutscene that involves your character kind of getting hit or punched or thrown around before it gets back on track like normal. All the QTEs do if you succeed them, and they're typically timing based, if you succeed them with perfect timing, is give you points towards your end of mission score, which can unlock bonus optional things at the end of each mission. And it certainly doesn't help that Asura's Wrath's QTEs aren't there to complement the gameplay. Instead, they are the gameplay, with the beat-em-up action game you get occasionally being the kind of filler in between the cinematic sections. The action game gameplay is also, truth be told, pretty weak. Killing fodder enemies is as trivial as ever, and you have a fairly limited moveset, especially since this game came out 5 years after Devil May Cry 3. It's an immense downgrade over something like that. The win condition for each of these beat-em-up sections is just to hit enough that you fill up your cinematic meter to progress the game. Okay, now I know I didn't paint this game in the best light just yet, but I promise I will get to why I love this game so much. I just wanted to make it clear early on in this video that this game absolutely will not be for everyone. It's got a heavy reliance on a game mechanic that has largely been phased out of any sort of major relevance in the gaming atmosphere these days. The beat-em-up sections are pretty poor quality. The game ran like absolute ass on my original PS3 hardware, and oh, I forgot to mention, the true actual ending is only available through purchasable DLC. Oopsie. However, at the end of the day, this game is unbelievably entertaining. The story is well paced, the MC is well written, and at the end of the day, you are in control of the action, and it feels so good. I want to go back to the statement reviewers often use to deride this game by calling it an interactive anime. Sure, that may not be what people expect from a video game, but does the idea of an interactive anime actually sound so bad? When I watch something like Gurren Lagann or Fullmetal Alchemist Brotherhood, having a big button labeled punch bad guy actually sounds like it would add to the experience. And by God, does this game deliver on exactly that. The game starts off explosively as you're thrust into a giant space battle with your fellow generals currently trying to fend off some creatures from Earth. You get a heavy helping of pretty much everything you'll experience in this game. Dope-ass QTE events, some small kind of shoot-em-up style sections, and an absolutely bonkers storyline. The first level absolutely sold me on the game because, I mean, you fight a giant rock monster from the Earth. It's honestly cool as all hell. I'm gonna quickly sum up the story of this game as, at its heart, it's just a very satisfying revenge story. You play as the titular Asura, who has a daughter that can channel an immense amount of energy called mantra, which is what is used to power the fortress that the generals use and the generals themselves. The other generals want to use your daughter in their plan to gather a shitload of mantra, and so they frame Asura for the death of the Emperor and kill him. Asura is thrust into the afterlife and manages to claw his way back to the living world after tens of thousands of years. In this future, the remaining generals are straight up just slaughtering humans in order to gather the mantra necessary to fight the hostile spirit of Gaia. So, Asura starts his journey to get his daughter back and absolutely slaughters every last general who betrayed him. Asura is rightly furious and has to channel and eventually succumbs to his wrath, hence the title. So that's the story in a nutshell. You go around beating the piss out of generals to get your daughter back. It's good, it's straightforward, and it lends itself really well to the cinematic QTE gameplay the game focuses itself on. So now I get to sing my praises about the amazing boss fights and the QTEs that accompany them. While the basic beat-em-up action against the fodder enemies may leave a lot to be desired, the same cannot be said for the boss fights. It's where the game really shines. The first general you come across is an excellent starter for the real game. You know how in anime and video games you often find yourself locked in a cutscene while the enemy fucking monologues about some bullshit reason about how they're actually doing the right thing for mankind or whatever? Well, Asura doesn't really care about what they have to say. They stole his daughter, they slaughter humans, and he wants to kill him. So what you can do instead is just punch him right in the face instead of listening to them drone on and on. It's absolutely stellar. A dedicated shut the fuck up button while the enemy monologues so you can just get to fighting. It's honestly genius. Then you get right into the action, and the boss fights are where the regular old beat-em-up gameplay is actually quite good. Fighting a big enemy with counterattack opportunities and a big reliance on iframe dodges is a ton of fun, and whenever one set piece or arena or hell enemy form might be starting to last a little too long, the game switches it up, gives you a cinematic fight scene, and ups the ante. Once again, the first boss shows this amazingly as we get the ever-memed point attack from the big guy's giant form. And the boss fights just never stop being amazing. There's great music, there's excellent set pieces, there's even our MC Asura doing incredible feats, with one of my favorites being him fighting without his arms. He just decides to kick the shit out of the bad guy. It's absolutely a blast to watch and to play. And just when you think the game can't get bigger and badder, you start seeing stuff like the bastard Twink getting absolutely murdered, Asura's ultimate rage form, hell, even the giant space laser and surfing on your childhood buddy's space flyer thing. It's jaw-dropping the entire way through, and once you finally make it to the end to get your daughter back and kill the big evil Deus, you get a huge power fantasy as your daughter channels all of the mantra that was gathered over the years, and you go into the core of the earth to beat the fuck out of the hostile spirit of Gaia. It's fucking godlike. It's so unlike anything else that I've ever played. The closest thing is probably Metal Gear Rising: Revengeance, but just the hype parts like the Armstrong monologue or chopping up the Metal Gear Ray. But those last for the entire game, and honestly there's enough variety that it doesn't really get old here. And then the game just kind of ends. The big bad from the first mission is dead, sure, but like, there's still one general and a mysterious little spider. Want the full story? Well, better shell out those $6 and also try to navigate the hell that is trying to buy anything on the PS3 shop these days. Now, I actually kind of want to give the developers benefit of the doubt here. I don't think their plan was to sell the full story as DLC, and I expect they likely wanted to make an entire full sequel. However, this game did not sell well at all. The middling reception, weird gameplay, and major reliance on a gameplay mechanic that was largely being clowned on by 2010 certainly did not help. So there was no chance at a sequel, and my heart wants to say the devs simply took their sequel plans, put them into 4 missions to sell as extras to actually finish out the story for people who wanted it. I don't know if that's true at all, but it's what I want to believe. So now we can talk about the true ending to this game. Gameplay-wise, somehow they made the QTEs even cooler. They managed to spice it up quite a bit with new QTE styles, like my personal favorite, the button overload, where the button you depress just shoves itself all over the screen. It's so much more flashy and imposing than the old spam button QTE we see every day. The fact that they managed to improve even quick time events for this final hurrah was honestly fairly impressive. The story itself also somehow ups the ante, and every mission of these last few are absolute bangers. The little spider buddy kidnaps your daughter and reveals himself as creator of the universe. You and your buddy get your ass whooped, and we get a fucking dope fight with mid-fight flashbacks to falling tower fights, and it just really goes all in on being fucking awesome. Your childhood buddy even sacrifices himself to give you enough power to fight back, once you've proven you're actually stronger than him. This game doesn't even miss on delivering the heart-crushing sections. Then we get one of the absolute best fights in video game history. You know that fight at the end of Gurren Lagann where Simon fights the spiral entity, the one that he was supposed to have like no chance of winning against? Yeah, it's exactly like that, but you actually get to play, and it's so good. Like, crazy good. It's hands down the best fight in this game, and here, I'm gonna show you some of my favorite parts. Wait, does he still not give a fuck? Oh, now he does. Oh my god!
I understand it all now. The true reason for my wrath. I could not stand it.
Oh. Oh. Ooh, ooh.
Pray to no one. Nor will I be prayed to. Above all else, I will forgive you for making my daughter cry.
So that's Asura's Wrath, a weird, unique, and critically panned game that I love to death. And sure, it may not fit into what we would traditionally consider an action video game, it is really cool to see developers trying something new with the medium, especially in this current gaming atmosphere where it seems like so many developers and publishers have absolutely no problem just releasing some derivative, uninspired game that's sure to be a safe bet and make their shareholders happy. It makes me really sad to look back and see how much we shit on any developers that were honestly kind of trying something new. Sure, it may not be for you, but in this video content era where you could watch a Let's Play or a stream, there's a lot of ways to engage with Asura's Wrath that don't force you to actually play the game, and you can just get the really cool parts. Hell, I'll probably do a drunk stream of it sometime soon. In any case, this game may not be for you. In fact, it may not be for a lot of people, but it's sure as fuck for me, and I'm very, very glad that it exists, and I got to play it, and I hope I'm not the only one out here that loved it too.